hour, and I think it's definitely key to in reaching our teens. So welcome to the 2021 Maryland Teen Reconnect Conference. This session is Partnerships and Community Engagement with presenters Katie Zawadney, Branch Manager from Anne Arundel County Public Library, Sharon Lanasa, Assistant Branch Manager, also Anne Arundel County Public Library, and Elizabeth Mayer, Young Adult Librarian, Cecil County Public Library. My name is Carrie Sanders, and I will be today's Zoom host. We are in a Zoom meeting, so I wanted to share some quick tips and tricks before we get started, although we probably feel like we know Zoom inside and out and in our sleep by this point. But in the bottom left-hand corner, if you're on a laptop, is the option for muting and to stop your video. We love to see you, see your faces, but if you need to stop your camera for some reason, that's where you can locate that. And please mute yourself when you're not talking or asking a question. As the host, I can mute you if I notice that there's a bit of background noise, so don't worry too much about that if you're having trouble muting yourself. And feel free to stop your video as well if you would like. If you're calling in from a phone, you can use *6 to mute yourself. Please use the chat to ask questions throughout the session. We will keep our eye on the chat. And you can also raise your hand when we get to the Q&A part. Lots of time to have Sharon and Elizabeth and Katie answer any of your questions. So we'll be very casual. It can either be through your own hand and asking away or use the chat. We'll keep an eye on that. To raise your hand, you can select the reactions button or press *9 if you're calling in via phone. In the top right-hand corner of your laptop, if you're on a computer, you can choose between speaker view and gallery view. Right now, we've got our speakers spotlighted so that you can see them. And if you're having any tech issues, just share that in the chat and we will do our best to help you. And while we're getting started, please make sure to fill out that sign-in sheet that we're popping into the chat with your email. And share. You can also share your name, as I said, and your library in the chat so we know who's here. You can say hello. And after the session, we will be sending out CE forms using the sign-in sheet. So make sure you do get signed in, and an evaluation and the recording, all of that will come to you in follow-up email. And we also will have all the resources, the slides shared today on the Teen Connect website for you as well. Today will be part presentation and part discussion, which means there will be plenty of time for questions. We ask if you can hold most of your questions till the end, but if there's a few specific things that you have for the presenters, pop them in the chat, and I'm sure they'll do their best to answer as they can. But we'll keep an eye on that to make sure that everything is answered before the end of the session. And there can be lots of discussion amongst all of you as well. All right. I think before we get started, the next thing we're going to do is just go over the ropes agreements that Isaiah mentioned in Teen Services 101, but if you were not there, we will go through those here quickly. This is an acronym. ROPES is an acronym for these few things that we just keep in mind as we all come together for some active conversation and discussion. I've used these with the YALSA T3 trainings that I've been doing the last couple of years, and these kind of seem to encompass those constructs that usually a group will form on their own. If we had more time, we would build our own agreements. That's the best practice, but these will hopefully do the trick for us. So just to remember to be respectful of yourself and others and be open to what you learn and what you hear. You may share something or think something and then change your mind and think, oops, I didn't mean that, or I wasn't thinking, change my mind about that, and that's totally okay. That's part of the learning process. We want you to participate. If there's something that you want to ask, don't be shy, but also remember to pass so that others can ask as well. Escuchar is our E in the acronym, which is Spanish, to listen, so to have active listening so that we make the most of this learning experience. Be open to the experience and to be sensitive to what we all bring to this conversation, and that we are in a safe space. We definitely think about this, providing these safe spaces for our teens, and we want this to be a safe space for all of us as we're learning together. So with that, I am going to stop sharing, and I'm going to turn it over to our team of co-panelists so that they can get us started. They're each going to take a few minutes to talk about what they bring to this topic, and then we're going to open it up for lots of Q&A and discussion. So Sharon, Katie, Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here, and take it away.
Sorry, I lost my unmute button there for a second. So hi, everyone. I'm Katie Zawadney. As Carrie mentioned, I'm the new branch manager at the Brooklyn Park Library with Anne Arundel County Public Libraries. Before this, I was in our programming and outreach department, and I worked very closely with many of our community partners, and I'm very excited to bring that work and perspective to my new library. Sharon, you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Sharon. I work at the Odenton branch of Anne Arundel County Public Library, and I am now the new assistant branch manager here, but I'm still working in outreach coordination, and I've spent the last several years working directly with teens and teen groups. So I'm excited to be with this trio this morning, or duo.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Mayer. I work at the Rising Sun Branch Library for the Cecil County Public Library System. I'm excited to share my knowledge on community outreach and partnerships. I'm working with the University of Maryland and the University of Washington right now to develop a connected learning toolkit for rural and small libraries. So I'm excited to share a little bit of that with you today as well.
Great, thank you. We have a lot to say on this topic, as you may have guessed. So we're going to talk really fast and kind of do quick overviews so that there's lots of time for conversation at the end. So we're just going to go ahead and dive in. So on this first slide, we grabbed the definition of community partnership from the Connected Lib Toolkit. I'm not going to read it out loud because it's really long and we have more things to talk about. So feel free to take a look once we send the presentation out later, or you can visit the Connected Lib Toolkit. So today I wanted to talk about the way that I approach partnerships and the framework that I use in my work. So I think it's really important for whatever you're doing and the way that you approach partnerships that it's scalable. So that way you can apply it to small projects, large projects, and everything in between. I also think it's really important to bring an EDI lens to this work. So for those who don't know, EDI is equity, diversity, and inclusion. So making sure that you're being very intentional about how that shows up in your work. My framework is also relationship centric. I think people are one of the most important parts of what we do. So I want that to come through in our partnerships as well, and really focus on library as our community connector. So there are three things that I bring to my work, which is starting with the why. So really focusing on your library's strategic plan, the mission, and the values to make sure what we're doing with our partners really aligns with the work of the library and making sure we're moving our mission forward. We want to think about who we're trying to reach and what our audience is. So once you have that, you want to think about what their needs are. So what are you doing to conduct a community analysis to make sure that you're actually doing what is needed by your audience? So that might be a survey. It could be informally chatting with your teens in the library. It could be reviewing data, for example, the census or any community needs assessments that are published within your county. Anne Arundel is really lucky. We have a great one that comes out every 5 years. And then thinking about how you're going to meet those goals and what goals are you creating and how are they being able to be measured so that you're making sure you're doing the right thing and you're doing it well. There are some really great resources to start with the why. So the Connected Lib Toolkit has a really great list of questions to ask your partners before you even get started. So for example, how many people do you work with? How many teens? And there's a bunch of great examples. Another one is called the Soar Analysis, and the programming librarian just did a really great article about it a few weeks ago, and we included a link to that in our resources. So definitely check it out and see if you can incorporate it in your own work. The second piece is to be intentional. So I think it's really important to research your partner, learn what their values and goals are, and then learn how to translate the library to their mission. Not everybody sees the value of the library, even though we have something to offer everyone. So it's really important to translate the services and resources that we have to offer so that everybody can see what value we're adding. Another piece is that the library has a lot of power. We are seen as a trusted community resource. So whoever we put our oomph behind means that they're also a trusted community resource. So make sure you're doing your research and thinking about whose voices you're lifting up. Are they reflective of your community? Are they people whose voices are really needed to be shared in the community? And then think about who's at your planning table, who's doing this work in the partnership with you. Since we're talking about teens, are you including youth voice in the planning process? And Sharon has a really great example that we'll show next of how that can happen. And finally, I think it's really important to be courageous and resilient. We are being asked to go into more uncomfortable spaces, I think, than we ever had before. So, you know, thinking about how can you reach out to strangers and make an effective partnership. And then, of course, it's really hard to form relationships. Sometimes it's just not the right time, but you have to be resilient and keep at it. So with that quick overview, I'm going to hand us over to Sharon.
Okay, thanks, Katie. And I'm going to use Katie's framework about the why, being intentional and being courageous and resilient, and talking about this example of a community partnership that we had last year. So let me start first with the initial contact. I do a lot of cold calling based on things that I see in the local papers or people that I might meet in the community and then reach out to. And it just happened that I had been reading a local newspaper story about our local high school, Arundel High School, having a student-led school-wide book study of Stamped by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendi, to engage in conversation with the school administrators, the teachers, and student leadership about institutional racism and microaggressions. Some of this was inspired or brought to the surface by some incidents at the school itself, and also the summer of 2020 protests, things that had happened. And that's how the students came up with that idea. Also, Arundel High School has a signature curricular program on community development and global citizenship. And that seemed to really align with that whole, sorry about that. I'm losing my words, but that whole mission with that curriculum. So the why was that student leadership was looking for ways to take this very well-received school-based anti-racism book study project outside of their school walls and extend it to other school systems, other districts, and basically across Anne Arundel County. The book aligned with both the mission of the library here and the school system as far as focus on equity, anti-racism, and inclusion values that we both shared. And it also provided in a virtual format a safe and intentional space for conversations about racism, white privilege, and examining institutional racism. So the intentionality came with setting up, making the initial contact, getting a positive response from the administration and student leadership, and then setting up regular meetings with that school leadership, student leadership, and also in consultation with our library systems program and outreach department, so that we could cover issues of staff and student capacity, matching the programming expectations with technical platform realities, and also staying true to keeping this a student led in with school and library staff, plus the Equity Leadership Council and their faculty advisor at the school. And
I think we may have lost Sharon,
I think so as well.
and I don't have access to her notes while I'm sharing screen. So why don't we move ahead to the next slide, Elizabeth, and we will come back to Sharon if her Zoom decides to play along.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay.
Sorry for the technical difficulties right now. Okay, so before reaching out to potential partners, it is important to recognize are you back?
yeah,
Okay, we lost you for a minute. Sorry,
okay.
Sharon.
I'm sorry. I don't know where I went and where I left off, but
So Sharon, you were talking about the equity leadership team and their faculty advisors and how they were a part of this conversation and the planning.
okay. So okay. So I was at the part about being intentional. We set up regular meetings with school leadership and the student leadership, and we also were in consultation with the library systems programming outreach department, so that we could get down to the nitty-gritty with issues of capacity, matching the programming expectations with the technical platform realities of switching from a Google Classroom platform that was used in the school-based program to the library system Zoom. We also made sure that the focus was staying true to allowing the student facilitator to create it and hosted the book study, that they stay in that leadership student-led capacity with some adult assistance. So in putting together the technical and the presentation aspects, the school and our library staff, plus like I said, the Equity Leadership Council, we engaged in sometimes some tough but ultimately constructive conversations about being comfortable with the new platform of Zoom, and also preserving the most successful and best elements of the school-based book study within that framework of a new virtual platform. So all of us work together to troubleshoot issues with book distribution, ordering free books, holding books at the library for people who are participating, training the student facilitators and the faculty assistants, and that switch from Google Classroom to the Zoom platform, and also in the process creating a schedule and also some documentation with instructions and tricks and tips for the presenters and the faculty that were involved.
And not to mention when they kept changing their mind on what they wanted, and we were able to work through all of that.
Yes, that is true. There was a lot of adjusting that was taking place to make this a vision that we could both share. So there was some back and forth in that, but ultimately, I think we all came to the conclusion that we could make it work under the circumstances, and it did turn out to be very successful. We had 4 sessions over the month of March, and on average, there were 90 participants in each of those sessions.
That's good. All right.
All righty. This is another great example. So your next type is going to be individuals, businesses, community partners. And some of those examples from Cecil County is going to be, we partner up with the Art Den, which is a local business in town that was established maybe 3 or 4 years ago. We offer in-person programming with them and virtual programming, which is well attended. We also have partners like Northrop Grumman, which we did NASA programs with, yoga programs as well, and even Aberdeen Proving Ground is a really great partner as well. So that's going to be individuals, businesses, and community groups. Our next type of partnership is going to be youth serving organizations, and you may already be aware of all of these. So that's going to be like the Boys and Girls Club, the rec centers, the YMCA, anything that serves the youth within the community. Our bookmobile goes to all of these great camps and clubs to offer our services with them as well. And then our next partnership is going to be the schools. So personally, I go into the schools once a week, or the high school once a week, with the in the media center to offer some type of programming. I bring technology with me. I bring other sorts of resources as well. And that just seems like a very natural partnership as well. So to go over to the levels of partnership. So we may have one-time partnerships. For example, you may have the Science Center come and do a program for summer reading. That's going to be your one-time partnerships, but they grow as well and progress depending on the level of partnership that you're looking for. So the first level of partnership is going to be networking and sharing ideas. That first interaction you have with your partner. This may be informal meetings, emailing back and forth, attending another meeting through their organization or business. And then the next level is going to be coordinating. So building off of each other's work and offering each other's resources as well. And then your next level is going to be informing teams of these partners. So for example, say, there's an opportunity through the rec center that one of your teams may potentially really be interested in sharing those resources and letting teams know what's going on within their community. And then collaborating with team programming. So this could be, for example, like partnering up with the health department and offering a tobacco prevention program like we did in Cecil County. And then our next one is forming community collaboration. So that's going to be forming those joint programs and having a shared effort. And then embedded partnerships, that's going to be something that's very natural, like the school system. They are an embedded partnership for Cecil County. We have a really great program where we offer a student virtual library card for all of public school students, so that every student has a library card and they're able to access and use all of our resources and check out materials and return materials without even having to come into the library's doors. So that eliminates a lot of barriers and factors like transportation. And then collective impact. So that's going to be your civic engagement, finding a collective problem within your community and trying to solve that problem. And it doesn't always have to be a political problem. It could just be noticing that there's a lot of trash on the side of the highway and bringing your efforts together in order to solve that problem. Okay, so how to rebuild or reconnect, rebuild, and to recognize with everything after COVID. So when reconnecting with community partners, it's really, really important to keep in mind the barriers that's keeping you from partnering. Again, this could be budgeting, this could be staffing, it could be a variety of reasons why you're not able to reconnect with this partner. And then you still have to reevaluate whether or not this is a really good partnership for you. Does it align with our mission, our vision, and the efforts that we're trying to do within a library setting? And will this partnership benefit the teams within our community? So these are really great questions to ask yourself when you're trying to reconnect with partners. And always refer back to the questions to ask your partner before making these plans from the Connected Live Toolkit. And we recognize that reaching out to these partners is such a daunting task. And we may not know where to begin, but just simply reaching out is half the battle. And to not get discouraged. You may feel that like you're constantly hitting roadblock after roadblock trying to reconnect with your partners, but just being persistent and keeping an open mindset is very important, and to not get discouraged. And rebuilding. It may take time to reestablish these connections, which is disheartening sometimes because you work so hard before everything to establish these connections. So just rebuilding it may be a daunting task. Again, don't get discouraged. And then collaborating with partners allows for the opportunity of cross-promoting. So you'll be able to promote the businesses or the individuals' work in some capacity, and they'll be able to promote you as well. And you'll be able to use shared resources like space, technology, and even staff if needed. And it's also really, really important to recognize that everyone has a new level of capacity externally and internally and externally. And there's always new goals and priorities for the library and community partnerships or partners as well. Sharon, did I miss anything? Would you like to add anything?
I don't think you missed anything, so I have nothing else to add. I think you covered everything.
Perfect. Okay, I think we can move to the next slide then, Katie.
All right, so we have just given you this wonderful presentation, and you might be thinking, where do we go from here? And I see that we have some questions in the chat about building these relationships. So finding partners. I've experienced a couple of different pieces to this. So one, when they come to you, that's great and awesome and such an easy way to start off your new relationship. Another one is introductions. So if you have a partner or maybe a friend, or maybe you were out at the bar and met somebody really cool and they know somebody who does something, you can totally ask them for an introduction to whatever organization that you've been so intrigued by. And then of course, as Sharon talked about, there's cold calling. So some really great places to find organizations in your community, of course, is the newspaper and the news, just to see what's going on, but also Facebook, joining your local community groups so you can see who's doing what in your neighborhood. And then you can look up their website and either email them or call them to just get the ball rolling and give the library a face and a name. And then, of course, there's the building your case. As we talked about earlier, partners may not always understand the value of the library, so research them, find out what their goals and projects and values are, and then translate library resources and services to align with those projects and values. So how can the library add value, and how do you use their words to make your case? And then finally, you want to be a reliable partner. So make sure that you are always following through on your action items. You want to build your trust and be timely so that you are, getting stuff done. And they know that, and they trust you to do what you say you're promising to do. All right. So we collected some resources for you. So we definitely wanted to highlight the YALSA competencies, the Connected Lib Toolkit, the Soar Analysis, like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, Skills for Community-Centered Libraries curriculum release, which is from the Free Library of Philadelphia. It's a new training course. I think it's 4 hours each for 4 weeks, and it has all sorts of really great things. You can get both the student and the presenter resources, so you can take a look at those. And then finally, 5 mistakes you might be making with your library partnerships. Here's all of our information. Please feel free to email if you have questions after this presentation. And I'm going to go ahead. Well, I'll leave this up for a little bit, but I will stop sharing in a minute so we can see each other's beautiful faces. But yeah, if there are any questions, I'm going to start looking through the chat.
Well, that's so helpful. And yeah, I've been kind of keeping my eye here. There's a specific one here. I'll kind of go back. This would probably be directed for Sharon, thinking about when you were working with the schools. And Robin was asking, what were your issues of alignment to convince the school that collaborating with the library would benefit them. And we've even had kind of a similar question down here a little more recently, just like when you're working with these partners. Katie, you just kind of addressed that when you really get to know that organization and then can see how you can make that alignment. But that's the critical piece to kind of do that advocacy for yourself. So anything to add about how you were able to go about that work with the school and then in general?
I'll start off with the question that Robin had. It wasn't hard to convince them to participate once I had connected with the school administrator and said, I read about this great book study that you did at the school. Let us know if we can help. Within a day, I got a call. Yes, we want to do this. We want to take it county-wide. You can help us. It was actually after we had established that we were going to move forward with this collaboration, that in talking about a change in the technical platform, that was where things got tricky. First of all, it wasn't necessarily streamlined for us to communicate, trying to get through their platform, through our platform, because there were firewalls, because they are school and there are security issues there. I think the biggest thing was that the students and the administrators at the school, this was such a groundbreaking and also really special book study experience that they had at the school level, that they were really trying to replicate all of the best things, the group participation, the small group discussions, a lot of those things that technically we couldn't replicate specifically like they wanted to, but just talking, conversing, and seeing how we could best translate those elements that they wanted with a larger platform that could reach more people. It worked out. It was a great program.
I think also we benefited from the history of partnerships with the school. So although Sharon did a cold call to the principal, we have long-standing relationships with the school. I know, Sharon, you've worked with their GSA in the past, and it's the little wins that prove that we're that reliable partner that we've built over time that really showed the school our value, our worth, and the way that we really could follow through on connecting them with that community audience that they were looking for.
And I just follow up with Katie, because Katie at the time was the outreach coordinator at the library system with the programming and outreach group. So it's having that support of the P&O staff who have developed a lot of those bigger partnerships, that they were there to support and help in a lot of ways with this branch program that turned into a larger system program.
And I think that's a great segue into Robin's question, actually for Elizabeth, but I'm going to answer a little bit from the Anne Arundel side. We do have our programming and outreach department that works very closely with many of our community partners. And I think we take very much a team approach to that work. So when we're meeting with partners that are focused on a local area, we'll bring that branch along with us. Before COVID times, we like to take our meetings in the branches so we could invite those staff to join us. And so it was really about building those relationships. Like I talked about in the beginning, it's relationship centric, not just with our partners, but with the rest of our staff. If we can approach this from a team perspective, we have so much more capacity to grow and to form these new relationships. And I know several of our branches work together on these things so that they have more access to staff and time. So Elizabeth, I don't know if you want to jump in as well.
Yes. So to answer your question, Robin, I am just a young adult librarian. I'm not an outreach specialist, but I am able to go out into my community and serve my community. The vision of my library system is that the library is the heart of a thriving Cecil County, and they really champion that. And I'm given opportunities to go out into my community and to create those connections and to establish those relationships. And I have a really excellent relationship with both of my media specialists within the middle school and the high school, which because of that creates really great opportunities for the teens in our community as well. We do have an outreach department within my county as well. So we have two really great, passionate librarians who go out with the bookmobile, and staff members go out with them to serve areas in the community as well. So for example, like the Boys and Girls Club, the bookmobile will go to the Boys and Girls Club, and usually a staff member will go along with them depending upon which community they're serving. So if we were going to the Boys and Girls Club in Rising Sun, I would then go along with our outreach specialist. Any other questions?
So I see one about convincing community organizations about the benefits of a collaboration. I have a really great example of this. So my former boss really wanted to work with Fort Meade, but they just didn't have any time for us. They were like, the library, that's where you go to read books. So she finally met their communications officer, and all he would talk about was the STEM pipeline. And she's like, we got all sorts of STEM stuff. We can help with your pipeline. So she was able to tailor that kind of pitch to that STEM pipeline. And now it's a blossoming, beautiful relationship. I know Sharon has worked with them quite a bit. And they give us the time of day now. So it's really about learning what they care about and translating library services to that so that they see the value. They see what we can offer and they understand it in their own language.
Yeah, I agree with Katie. And sometimes it's just going through the levels of people to connect and finding the people who can really talk to and address what you're trying to do. And I'd go back to what Tia had said and the 101 session about tying it to your strategic plan, some of the things that you're looking to accomplish with the community and community partnerships that have to do with education, with lifelong learning, with entrepreneurial skills, a whole set of things. So we were able, through that coordination and that relationship with Fort Meade, to connect with the U.S. Army. And they were able to send out people from their cyber intelligence brigades to do an on-site hackathon. It was over several sessions, and it was geared to teens. And then they were here pre-COVID so that you could establish personal partnership. People could ask them questions. So yeah, just working on getting to the people who can hear you and are on the same journey and toward the same goals you are.
And definitely do some research as well. You would be surprised how many places have actually outreach departments. I was surprised to find out like the Aberdeen Proving Ground has an outreach department. I had no idea that that was even a thing until like you investigate these things further, and they're more than happy to create those partnerships.
Another piece is going back to being resilient. So as Sharon said, you want to find the right person to talk to, but it's also the right time to talk to them. So right now, doing outreach may not be on the top of everybody's lists, but if you just keep that relationship to say, hey, how's it going? What's going on? Can we help you with anything? Just to keep that friendly face of the library so they know who to reach out to when they're ready. And then another piece is learning how to translate library services into business talk. So like they may be talking about return on investment or market penetration. So how do you translate library magazine reach to market penetration and stuff like that? So I do see we have a question about being short-staffed, and we need staff available for branch services in a busy branch. Any suggestions? We've had to cut back our programming and outreach. So I really love the team approach. If you can partner up with another branch so you can grow your capacity, whether it's maybe bringing somebody in to work the desk so you can get out of the library and do some of that outreach. But I also think part of it is working with your supervisor and the people that are in leadership. What are the priorities for your library? And maybe there isn't the capacity to do this right now, or maybe it's a smaller scale than what we've been talking about today. It could just be saying, hey, you're a really cool organization and you're doing awesome things. Can we help promote for you and just put up flyers? I mean, that takes, maybe 20 minutes. Yeah, it doesn't have to be big to grow.
And that goes off of the type or the levels of partnership as well. Just informing your teams that there is a partnership and that there are resources out there and opportunities for education, career, mentorship out there for them. That's half the battle.
I'm going to jump in here too. This is a huge question about how to do this work. This is really important work, and it links back to a 4-week learning series that we hosted through the Maryland State Library in June that was looking at a project from Linda Braun and Dr. Megha Subramanian last year in 2020 called Reimagining Youth Services. I'm putting the link in the chat right now. And out of these conversations that happened throughout 2020, they created what they called the field guide, and it ruffled some feathers, some of their findings, because they're really advocating that for us to really meet the needs of our community and know what those needs are, that we need to get outside of ourselves and outside of the kind of the library silo that we can find ourselves in, and to really become more of a public servant than a library servant. And that happens by having these conversations and really knowing what the needs are in your community and doing that through these partnerships. And it's not easy. It does take some time. And it's not the real visible work that we are just kind of in that thinking like we have to promote our stuff, we have to promote our programs, we have to promote our collections, we have to find a way to do that. That's very much a part of the pie, but there's more to the pie than that. And it's getting into kind of that mindset of others in the organization to understand that I need to do this work that's not as visible, but it's critical to show our worth in our community, to get out from behind the desk and to get out of our walls, to have those conversations. And it is a struggle. I know right now that we have a lot of capacity issues, we have a lot of staffing challenges, a lot of scheduling, and there's 4 essential tasks in the field guide, and one of those is the systems and structures piece that enables this work to happen. Yana and I are actually doing a field guide 2.0 4-week learning series in December to kind of piggyback on what we did in June, to really kind of start talking about this shift in our thinking and encouraging these co-design sessions and work with our community partners to happen. It's just important to really make us be like really showing our value in this deeper way, because it will be reflected if we can really collaborate and work with our partners to meet whatever that critical need is. And we've had a lot of them the last 18 months, and they're not all going away. So I see Diane has her hand up, and I will actually put the registration for the December learning series in the chat as well, if anybody is interested. And I encourage you to just explore the work from Megha and Linda from last summer, and how we do this work in our communities. Diane, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer an idea. for those branches that are really short-staffed and really having a hard time getting out there, most libraries really do have something that's very valuable to many in the community, and that's some kind of meeting space. And sometimes you can get a partnership started just by making sure they know, hey, do you need a space to meet? Do you need a space to reach out to the public yourself? And a lot of, especially a lot of government agencies in the area or clubs in the area, they too are trying to find some outreach and ways to meet the community. So even if you don't have the ability to actively plan a program in partnership with one of these community members, it may be a way to get a partnership started just by getting them into the library building itself.
I love our meeting room groups. We do promotion to them. We go down and chat with them. And we've been having some really great Judy Center events in our meeting room because they can't bring the families into the school. So they're using our library and it's been awesome. We have baby yoga and I love it. So yeah, that's a great idea, Diane, because it's really low hanging fruit for us. We just open the meeting room.
I think it's also important if you can't do the in-person, the in-person formats for things, just to maintain a connection and say, we're here, however we can support you best in what you're doing right now. You have somebody to contact. And also it's important to know what the partner's capacity is to do, particularly as it as pertains to schools right now. They're going through a lot of change and some traumatic adjustment, teachers, staff. So making sure that you just say, I'm there if you need somebody. And even when we were closed for COVID in 2020, there was a very contentious and interest heavy election that was going on. So we had already established something with our partnership with the League of Women Voters. So we were able to work with them, even not seeing people. We were able to put a card out for Voter 101 so that people had access to information, because even the election sites and local things were changing. So there are ways that you can think outside the box, and I hate that term, but to just let people know you're there and you're there to support them, even if it doesn't become an actual bona fide program.
And I know we spoke briefly about meeting rooms, and I know that some libraries are still closed or in the process of reopening. For example, my branch just opened our meeting rooms last week or the week before. We haven't had our meeting rooms open to the public for quite some time now, and some branches in our system aren't even open at all. So going out and like delivering activities to go, we offered an array of STEM related activities while we were closed to the public, and even continued that while we were open to the public too. We had our children's librarian who would deliver these activities to like the daycares. I would deliver these to the schools, and it'd have our logo and a STEM related activity, just saying, hey, we're here, here's something free and fun to do with the family, and just keeping that up as well. I watched a TED Talk the other day that said that a library is not a place, but a concept. So just kind of taking that into practice as well when we're not able to utilize our spaces the way we normally would have before.
I was also going to say, we're not just the building, we're also our lawns. So we actually had community-based services for birth to 5 special needs playgroups meeting in our yards during quarantine, which is pretty cool. So I see oh, Sharon?
No, nope.
Okay. Ida, if you want to go.
Oh, Hi, I'm Ida from the Seattle County Public Library. I did have to step away for 1 second while my wonderful colleague Elizabeth was talking. So Elizabeth just starts screaming at me if I'm saying something you said during that 1 minute. We are literally this weekend, we had a branch that had to, with no notice, not open because we're having such a staffing nightmare. So we certainly, very much understand the outreach thing. A cool thing that actually I'm not going to claim any credit for, I wound up jumping on the very end of because I got transferred branches, is we've done this Teens Give Back thing. So you guys may have heard various presentations about it. We used to do it in person. The teens work we get teens together. They think about an organization they'd like to work with. We find something we can do for them. I think the original one pre-COVID was they sewed beds for the Humane Society. But we actually while we were still pretty closed, we had this partnership with the health department where they had some money. And we did a version of kind of combining Teens Give Back and these activity to go kits where we already knew the organization was going to be about tobacco prevention and tobacco cessation, so helping people quit and not get started. And the teens came up with these different activity bags of, sort of hobbies maybe you'd pick up instead of it, and included these booklets the teens created. This was all done on Zoom with different activities and information. There were sort of 3 different learn a new hobby basically that you could do, like, a nature walk and doing these painting stones. And so then it was all done completely virtually and remotely. And that was a really cool way. We partnered with the health department, and then the health department has some of the kits. We've given out some of the kits. I think maybe some other outreach things have gotten some kits too. So we were able to partner with an organization and have a program. And no one had to be in the building together at the same time to do it. And I know we're doing another version of it starting very soon with the VA and doing a partnership. I think they're going to be making Christmas cards, maybe. I've been a little behind on following that. But it's a really cool way that we've partnered without staff ever having to, you need to be able to do a few Zoom meetings. But that's, I find, somewhat more doable than 2 staff need to leave the building for hours at a time.
I'm so happy that you brought that up, Ida, because that's also a really great example of partnerships trying to solving a collective problem, and especially a civic engagement problem like that.
Yeah, we actually, even in terms of staff time, though, maybe it didn't save us that much time. Even if anyone who did kit assembly became like a full-time job for a lot of us, which sometimes I miss. I kind of like that. That appealed to my desire to organize things. But we actually had sent home the raw materials, and the teens assembled the kits, put like 5 of these and 2 of these and a booklet of this and folded this and put the sticker on the front, and then brought them back in for us to distribute. So we really were able to get the health department and the teens and outreach and a little bit of everything.
And they all received service hours for this as well. So that was another great incentive for this. And within the public school systems in Cecil County, they need service hours in order to graduate.
I'll just jump in real quick and saying, if you can't actively do programming because of a number of things, I mean, short-staffed, all the things that have hit people post-COVID, it's also important to just have a seat at the table. It may not happen right away. It may be something over time, but just, going to a grocery store or Giant Foods grocery store that's nearby, they have community representatives who will come and do things or go on virtual programs to do learning activities for all ages, including teens. the Fort Meade Alliance that's here, it's a group of people on the base and off that are looking at things like job training, education, getting people who are on the base outside of the base into the community. So if you can say, hey, we're kind of doing the same thing at the library, seeing if you can Zoom into meetings or go to a reception or something like that, just to say, we're here, use us for different things. They may not, you know, so many people don't know the extent of what the library can offer them. So just starting those conversations is valuable, even if it can't become an action item in the foreseeable future.
And don't get discouraged. We may not be able to go into physical spaces to provide outreach, but there are definitely different means in which you can provide outreach. For example, during our closure, I was creating curated book lists for my media specialist when she was doing book discussions. So just finding those opportunities and not getting discouraged, and just keep trying and going back to the whiteboard and trying to, I guess, reinvent the wheel as much as you can.
Also, in the chat, somebody shared that they were just dropping off flyers at events for an unmanned table, and that's another really great scaled down version. And somebody mentioned in the chat that all of this is much more attainable if you have all of those resources. It's much harder when none of that is anywhere near you. And you're not wrong. It is hard. Definitely, I highly recommend talking to leadership and seeing what kind of extra support you might be able to get on that. Because that's their job. They're there to help you accomplish the goals of the library.
I mean, we don't have NASA. We don't have a military base. We don't have a Giant Foods. We don't have, we've got one grocery store in the whole county. Or no, we've got two. We have two grocery stores in the county, but they're food lions. We don't have access to all of these tools that everybody else has.
Do you mind if I ask where you are, Karen?
I'm in Somerset. Yeah,
Well,
we do have schools. We have schools. But that's, yeah, that there's one Girl Scout troop in the whole county. There's one Boy Scout troop in the whole county. Most of the kids, if they want to play Pop Warner, they have to go to a different county to join a team. We just don't have the infrastructure here to do all of that sort of stuff.
So I think Elizabeth made a really great point earlier. A lot of these federal organizations do have outreach teams, and they're supposed to come to you. And I think Carrie can talk a little bit more about that from the state perspective. But Karen, you should also tell me what you're working on in the chat, because I'm very intrigued. It looks great.
And not only that, like NASA and big organizations like that, they have curriculums and classes available online that are free. So you can download all of their lesson plans, free PDFs, free printouts, everything. NASA does a really great after school universe for middle grade that's all free through their website. And it's fantastic. It's a phenomenal program. So it's a way that you can still incorporate big name things and curriculum from NASA. I mean, University of Maryland 4-H Extension, all of their curriculum is online as well. So that's a way of still offering those really interesting STEM related programs with community partnerships as well.
And
Just trying to sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Elizabeth. You're for sure. And that's where we try to step in and have some of those statewide partnerships that all can take advantage of, because we know that not everybody has these things in their backyard. Perfect example, tomorrow night, the partnership between the Maryland STEM Festival and NASA is bringing this second of two amazing virtual programs that are available statewide. I can send that information out again to my networks, but we know that not everybody has these resources in their backyard.
Can I just say something real quick? Karen, I worked for 11 years in Dorchester County, so I truly know your pain.
You get it.
I get it. So if you want to contact me, I'm still engaged in that community there, and also that region. So hit me up at the email address, and I'll try and give you some ideas.
Thank you all. This has been a really full hour. Not all the answers to all of our challenges, but I think there's just been a lot of great strategies and tips to think about here. And I love, Sabina, you adding in there just that thank you at the end when you do have a great relationship or one experience with someone, just to either through an email, a phone call, drop off a book. That thank you goes a long way. So thank you all. I just appreciate all the sharing. We have mentioned that the slides are available off the website. Joe, if you want to pop the sign-in sheet, or Kat, one more time, just in case anybody needs that sign-in sheet to get the follow-up information, but we really appreciate you with us. Katie, Elizabeth, Sharon, wonderful. Thank you so much. Great for you to be here. And everyone have a wonderful lunch, and we hope to see you this afternoon at some of our afternoon sessions. So take good care.
Thank you so much.